And that process of acquiring practices, do you think you learned that from a book or just by doing it?
No. That you have to jump. You're in front of a lake, it's cold, just jump and swim because you got to get to the other end.
How do you go about getting more clients, more patients?
There's different ways to go about it. So you have to build a good.
What's the biggest challenge that you faced?
Getting over the fear of failing.
How do you stay motivated to keep getting better every day and growing?
I want to see how far this life can take me in terms of time is everything. Time you cannot get back. You can always make more money. If right now I lost everything, I know how to build it back up, but I don't get the time back. Divide and conquer, my friend. Divide and conquer. It's impossible to do everything yourself.
What are some of the most important lessons that you've learned from owning multiple dental practices?
To expect the unexpected.
Dr. Valls, thank you very much for being on the show.
My pleasure. Glad to be here.
I read an article from the Cleveland Clinic that says about 36% of people in the US have a fear of dental treatment, with 12% having an extreme fear. Why do you think this happens?
I think it has to be higher than that. So many people are afraid of the dentist, and I think it comes from the fact that a lot of the people that go to the dentist, the majority that get work done, are an older population, and they come from this fear of dentistry how it used to be, that it was a lot of pain, things done without anesthesia, and just, you were brought in as a kid to the dentist and you hated it. And now that generation is the one getting most of the work done. So yeah, a lot of people are afraid of it. And also it's not something that is very affordable. So people hate it because of that as well. So that combination of things, I think we're definitely one of the most hated medical professions by far.
I usually go 2 times a year, and it's not that bad when I go.
Our generation is a lot more used to it because you went where, they were going to schools and it was fun, and they came up with all these things about how to desensitize kids to the dentist and make it like a funner activity, as opposed to back in the day that they used to go to the schools and torture you for 30 minutes yes. And you hated it. And especially, patients that still come from other countries that it's not as advanced as it is in the U.S. or in some of these countries that have advancements in dentistry. They're still afraid of it because they go to the dentist and they don't get, anesthesia or treatment like that. The country that I'm from, Cuba, they don't have anesthesia. So if you got to get a tooth pulled, it's coming out without anesthesia, root canals, and things like that. So they hate it, and that creates a big fear.
Putting dentistry aside for a second, what was it like growing up in Cuba?
As a kid, I think anywhere you are, if your parents create a good environment, you have a good time. I mean, I grew up in a very small town outside of Havana, and we didn't have much. But as a kid, you don't realize that you're running outside, going from place to place, and you don't, play sports. You don't realize that the struggles that the family goes through. You only realize that as you grow up. So my childhood in Cuba was good because I had cousins, friends running around playing sports. You just don't realize the struggles that your parents have to go through to even feed you, to the point that sometimes they wouldn't eat themselves to give you the food. The one steak that was available, the piece of chicken, they would just eat rice with a plantain because there wasn't enough for everybody. And then the transition was, I came when I was 10. So now you start realizing a little bit more of the struggles that your parents go through. It's definitely tough at the beginning, from your dad working 12 hours, coming home all dirty, to your mom working, 2 jobs and going to school to try to get a degree so she can work here. You start realizing the struggle that, your family goes through a little bit more. And I think that's just a life lesson to make you work hard and just strive. Because, at some point you're going to be the one to take care of them in the future.
True. Did you always see yourself becoming a dentist when you were a child?
For most of my life. Since I was a little kid, when they ask you what do you want to be, you're a firefighter, police, I always wanted to be some sort of doctor. Oh. And I didn't know which one specifically. And then, again, you grow up and you start doing a little bit more research and looking into what's a good profession to build a life. Something that's going to, build the life that you want to. I discovered dentistry. In terms of the freedom that you get, the pay that you get, where you're able to provide for your family, the freedom in terms of money and time, because in my opinion, time is way more valuable than money. Dentistry just fit perfectly.
Can you tell me about your career? How did you start, and what made you start your own dental practice?
Like I said, to me, time is everything. Time you cannot get back. You can always make more money. If right now I lost everything, I know how to build it back up, but I don't get the time back. Not for myself, not for my family, not for anybody. So once I looked into dentistry, decided dentistry was going to be it, I looked into how can that give me more time. And as I was going to school in dentistry, I saw that, there was an opportunity in dentistry not only to work as a dentist and fulfill the things that I like, but also to create something that was going to give me that time back. So now I worked for a while because when you graduate, you're good, but you still need to like refine your skills a little bit better. So I worked for a while for somebody who taught me a lot. And after that, I started looking into the business side of dentistry. How to acquire practices, how to manage them, which is that's not something that you learn in school at all. If you go to a good school, they make you a really, really good dentist, but you don't know anything about how a single number works. You just know how to work on teeth and how to treat patients. So I started doing my research on that, read a lot of books, listen more than read, just because Miami, we drive a lot. So you have a good hour and a half. So I listened to a lot of books, a lot of help books, a lot of, self-growth books, and followed a few people that, did this, that bought dental practices, managed them. I still work the dental practices 1 day a week on each, and then I manage the rest. Right now I have 3. But the thing that I needed to learn the most, that barrier, was basically how to manage a team, how to grow it, how to keep it functioning without having to practice dentistry myself.
How important do you think it was to learn from that doctor that you mentioned in the beginning, and also listening to a lot of books? What are some books, if you could share with us, some of the books that impacted you the most?
10X was a good book because it just motivates you. How to Make Friends and Influence People. Love that book. 48 Rules of Power. Those are like keys to me. Those are, now there's a handful of other books that you go through, but it's more building on what those books teach you. I think those books are a great gateway for everybody to get started. Rich Dad, Poor Dad was also a good book. But again, all the extra books that I read just build on top of what those books teach you. I think, How to Make Friends and Influence People, it's an old book. I think it's from the 1920s, but it changes your mind on how to approach every situation. It teaches you how to, treat people and get the best out of the people that work with you. So everything else is good to build upon. It gives you little techniques, something a little bit more in the modern times in terms of accounting, taxes, and how to acquire businesses nowadays. But how to carry yourself, how to behave, how to treat everybody, how to get a patient, keep a patient or a client or whatever business you're in. I think those are the books that you need to really, really focus on.
And that process of acquiring practices, do you think you learned that from a book or just by doing it?
No. That you have to jump. It's you're in front of a lake. It's cold. Just jump and swim because you got to get to the other end. And that's where the part of working with a dentist that was more experienced than me at the beginning helped, because at least in my field, you need to buy your first practice and you just need to know how to grow it and keep it. And that comes from the clinical aspect of it. You get the sense of how to treat patients from those books, but the clinical aspect of it, no book is ever going to teach you. There's a lot of good material online, a lot of good doctors that post their things on either YouTube or podcasts or things, and they give you a good understanding. But you need to having a good mentor is important, and that practice, you need it, because your worst practice, at least from my experience, is always going to be your first practice. Because after that, you know what to look for in the second one and the third one, and then the process just becomes a lot easier building on top. If you get a good base, it's very easy to build a house. You just need to start with that foundation. The first one's the one you're going to struggle with the most. After that, then it's easy to build on.
So right now you have 3 dental practices, and you also have a spa. You're going on your 4th dental practice that you want to purchase in the future.
That's what we're working towards. Yes.
Do you buy the practices brand new? Do you just buy the real estate and then start from zero, or you're buying it from other dentists that they're either retiring or moving to another state?
Yeah, no, I like to buy practices that are already working. I like to buy them from a dentist either retiring or relocating, simply because you already have a network of patients that you can, take from and, start making money right away, as opposed to you build something from scratch and it's a little bit of a uphill battle for a while. We started the med spa from scratch. We've been open for about a month, and we can see the difference between buying something with patience already as opposed to building something from the beginning. There's advantage and disadvantage to both, but I prefer buying from somebody who's retiring, that has been in the area for a while, that has a reputation, has a good amount of patience. It's easier to transition those patients to the new practice than starting from scratch, in my opinion.
Okay, so all the practices that you've bought in the past, they already had the book of business or pretty much the clients.
Pretty much.
How do you go about getting more clients, more patients? How do you handle that right now?
So that part is you just got to see how the area works. There's different ways to go about it. Nowadays, everything's online, so you have to build a good online presence. That's number one. You have to work with social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, just to build your profile. And once you have a good basis with that, then you can start going into Google. And you start doing Google ads and things that bring in more patients, that increases your visibility. But if you're starting to do all these ads and everything from the beginning and you don't have a good online presence, somebody sees your ads, they look you up, you're nobody. They're not going to be very enticed to go to you. So if you build a good reputation online, then it's easier when you do these ads. When somebody finds you, they look you up, they're like, oh my God, so okay, this person has some sort of basis. They might know what they're talking about. Maybe I'll go get a consult with them. And I think it's like that in most businesses.
Is that something that you do yourself, or you hire someone else who handle that for you? How does that work?
Divide and conquer, my friend. Divide and conquer. It's impossible to do everything yourself. I'm a good clinician, and I know how to run my team, and that's what I focus on. Everything else, I build a team for. My wife is the one that does all the digital marketing and everything like that, and she also works with teams that have more experience with the Google ads and everything. Because, like I said, you can't do everything yourself. It's hard to grow that way.
And at what point in your career, or after you open up your practices, how do you know when was the right time to expand and hire new doctors and hire new team members to potentially handle the marketing or whatever it is that you had to handle?
Yeah, at the beginning you have to do a lot of it yourself, and I think your office or your business tells you it's time to move forward without you even having to look too much into it. If you're getting booked ahead of time, maybe it's time to bring in a new associate and start giving them, some of the new patients that are coming in, or some of the dentistry that's a little more bread and butter for them to tackle on until they build their skills, just like you did at the beginning. Because if you're already getting too many patients and you're not servicing all the patients well, it's better to have somebody else help you with that process. And same things in terms of the marketing. If you're already really busy with a certain aspect of your business, then maybe you can bring somebody else to help you with the online presence so that you don't have to deviate from what you're really good at.
What's the biggest challenge that you faced when opening up your first practice?
Getting over the fear of failing. Getting over that fear of failing, I think, is what holds everybody back.
Do you think you ever get over that fear, or you think you're just always having that fear of failing?
You're in different ways. You always have a little bit of fear, because you're always afraid that, if I fail, how do I, maintain my family? How does my family eat? But at some point you realize that if you fail, you already know, you have the knowledge to start back up. And I think that's the most important thing that everybody needs to realize. Build knowledge first. Once you have that knowledge, no matter what, you're going to be successful one way or the other. Yeah, maybe your business might fail because of a world crisis or COVID or whatever might happen. We've been put to the test. I think as a society in the past few years, a lot of businesses failed, not because they were doing anything wrong, simply because there was a world catastrophe that happened that really affected a lot of people. But if you build that knowledge, if you know how to get things done, you can always start again. Yes, it might be a little bit struggle. Yes, you might have to, go back to working hard like how you did at the beginning, which you should never stop working hard. You should always strive to, improve, either like personally, knowledge-wise, or in your business, because that's something that you won't lose. No matter, you might lose your business, you might not have a place to work, but that knowledge is always going to be rewarding.
How do you strive to improve every single day and kind of self-develop in a way?
It's tough to put, because at some point you get so busy that you kind of forget to improve yourself. You're so busy in trying to get the business to run. But I think the way that I see it for myself is just try to be first and foremost, good father, good husband. I try to keep a clean mind when it comes to that. And then in business, just seeing what's new out there. How are people thinking? How is the demographic changing? Is there like a new book that you should listen to? Somebody came up with a new idea. Getting up in the morning, that should be the first step that you do. Never be lazy. Never settle. That's my thing. I try to never settle. I always try to improve, and I always try to see what's the next step that I should take to improve either my lifestyle, my family's lifestyle, or the well-being just in general. I could be comfortable with 3 clinics. That's a good amount. If I focus on those, I can grow them, and I can have a good, lifestyle. But I think that's settling. If I can do more, I should do more. So right now I'm trying to get my 4th. And I set goals, whether it is a 5-year goal, a 10-year goal. And just by setting that goal, and you have to set a goal high enough that you're not going to meet it like early. Set a goal that if you fall short of your goal, at least you achieve something. So that's the best way for me to do it is like that. I set myself goals and I go for them every year.
What are your 5 to 10 year goals, at least in terms of business?
In terms of business, as of now, I want to acquire 1 to 2 dental practices per year. I want to try to make that into a business that is self-sustained, that somebody can, find the practices, help with the financing, and I basically oversee the process. At this point, I'm very involved in it. I'm leading it, but I want to, make that a little bit of an easier process for myself. And eventually, get into real estate. You have to, if you're making money, you have to know what to do with it. If not, you're going to lose it. Always investing. The money sitting in your bank or your house is depreciating just because of how inflation is going. So eventually get into real estate in different ways. And after the business of dentistry is, self-sustained, is growing on its own, maybe find new business acquisition that I want to go into.
So if we're talking about 1 to 2 practices each year for the next 10 years, you're talking about 10 to 20 dental practices. What do you want to do with them? Do you want to hold them, or you potentially want to grow them and then exit them? What's your strategy?
In that sense, I have no strategy. So as of now, I have a model in my mind of how dental practice should work, and that's what I try to put in each one of them, because I don't think that a dental practice is meant to make the owner rich. I think it's supposed to, help the population that is built around, the population that it has. So I have a very specific model that I try to implement to my practices. And if I build it and it's working well in that sense, I wouldn't want to get rid of it, because I want the patient population that practice is servicing to get the care that I envision for them. So definitely keep them for as long as I possibly can. At some point, whether it is my body, my mind, something's not going to be working the way that it is, and it's going to be too much to handle. And at that point, like I said, divide and conquer, you have to know when to let go of certain things. And I think I'm going to find out eventually when that point is, but as of now, grow them and keep them.
Where did you get that divide and conquer
I have no idea.
Made it up.
I've had it for a long time, probably read it somewhere, heard it somewhere, somebody told me, but I love that saying. I love that saying because nothing in the world was conquered by one person. History might like to tell us that some people, but it's impossible. They had armies, they had people advising them. We know that, kings, rulers, emperors, everybody had a team around them, because nobody can make a clear decision without having the whole picture, and one person doesn't have the whole picture. So when we sit down in our manager meetings once a month or once every 2 months or whenever it's needed, everybody puts their input. Everybody's seeing things from a different perspective. Sometimes I'm in the back with the patient and I'm not seeing what's going on in the front. Sometimes I'm in the front, I'm not seeing what's going on in the back. So if I don't get that perspective from the people that are around me, advising me, telling me what their experience are, how they think it can improve, I can have a full picture. So I cannot make a good informed decision. So that's why I love that saying, divide and conquer. I cannot be in the front of my practice and in the back at the same time. I cannot split myself. So that's, to me, is incredibly important.
Divide and conquer.
Yep.
I've never heard that before, so I really like it.
Oh, really? Oh, I thought it was very famous. I didn't think it was...
I mean, yes, I've heard it before, but not in terms of business and expansion, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's impossible. You cannot be in two places at once. So how are you going to grow?
Good. What advice do you have for someone considering becoming a dentist?
That's a tough one, because I think the world is very different now than how it was when I decided to become a dentist. Not only in the way people think, but also in terms of the digital world. You have to. I think before it was a good career if you were passionate about it, or if you wanted to make money, or if you wanted to grow. I think right now you should go into it more if you're passionate about it. There's other ways to make money. Too many ways to make money. And dentistry is not a field that grows as fast as inflation does. Some offices are charging the same for a crown that was being charged 20 years ago, because insurance dictates a lot, and you just can up the prices how they do in the supermarket. I mean, the way that groceries are now, as opposed to even last year or maybe 5, 10 years ago, dentistry has not upped that much. Actually, prices in dentistry have actually gone down from when they first started doing implants. They were charging a ton of money for it. As now, they've actually gone down because of the competition, the amount of companies that make implants, the amount of doctors that place implants. There's a lot more competition out there. So if you want to be a dentist, make sure that's what you want to do, and you're not doing it for money purposes or for any other reason. Make sure that it's a passion that you like the field, that you like what you're doing. Because if you're doing it for any other reason, there's a lot of other ways out there to go ahead and make money and live a good life.
Do you think most people are becoming dentists for the money aspect of it?
I have no idea. There used to be a saying when I was in dental school that 9 out of 10 dentists used to go into dentistry because of the lifestyle, and the 10th was lying.
Wow.
So it used to be a really good lifestyle. It gave you a good amount of freedom. I mean, if you even work for somebody, you didn't have to work full time and you still make a good life. And if you ended up opening your own practice, you didn't have to work every day to make a good life. You had a lot of control over time and freedom for yourself. But like I said, if you're doing it for that aspect, you can do online jobs. There's so many ways to make money nowadays that I don't think that should be your deciding factor.
I know a lot of dentists that they only have one practice and they pretty much just die with that practice or retire with that practice. Did you always have that mentality of having multiple practices, or was that something that happened after you bought your first practice and you started working in it? When did that come about?
No, I always knew that's what I wanted to do. I always knew that I really liked the business aspect of dentistry, and I like business just in general. That's why I'm not just in business and dentistry. We have a MESPA, and we want to expand to other aspects that are related to business. I always wanted to have multiple practices. I said, the freedom. If you have one practice, it's a lot harder for you to step away from it and have a different type of lifestyle. It used to be, and this is what I mentioned before, the mentality has changed from 20, 10, 15, 30 years ago. It doesn't matter when you look at it. The people's mentalities have changed a lot. Back in the day, you got a job, you worked it, that was it, you retire with it, whether it was in dentistry or in a factory. So yes, a lot of dentists graduated, opened their practice, worked it 5-6 days a week for 30-40 years, and then decided to retire. That's not the mentality of the world that we live in right now, and I think that was affected by technology. It opened the mind of everybody to how big the world is, that people want to live it. It's not just about working nowadays. It's work to live, not live to work. So that mentality changed a lot, and that's one of the things that I think affected dentistry.
Did you ever own a business before you became a dentist, or where did that business mentality come about? How?
Freedom. I think it's hard to have freedom if you're working a 9 to 5. I think that mentality came from the fact that I didn't want to be 9 to 5 all the time, and I knew the way to do that was to be a business owner. It's really hard to have a free schedule when you work for somebody else. So I always knew I hate people telling me what to do. So I always knew that I wanted to be my own boss. And I think that's what's going to give me the freedom that I want in the future to spend with my family, with my kids. I mean, if I only see my kids a little bit in the afternoon when I get home from work and I spend 2-3 hours with them, I don't think that's enough. I want to be able to take them to school, pick them up, play sports with them, take them to places. It was always my mentality to do that.
How old are your kids right now?
I have a 2-year-old and a 8-month-old.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So you mentioned the word freedom a lot. Yep. So to have freedom, you need to have a business where you can step aside and not have to, maybe you can step aside for months, maybe a year, without having to come to the practice and see what's going on. How do you build a high-performing team in the 3 practices that you have right now?
It's a tedious work. You have to work with them a lot at the beginning. You have to. I think the most important thing is for them to see the vision that you have, for them to step into your shoes in terms of the mentality of how it needs to function, and for them to actually have their own goals as well. If somebody is going in and working 9 to 5, it's going to be hard for them to put in the full effort. They need to have goals themselves, and that's what I try to instill in my team. I always like to show them that there's room to grow within our organization, whether you started at the front desk and potentially becoming a manager, or if you're a branch manager becoming a general manager, or in potentially being part of like buying equity into the business or in any way, shape, or form. And they know that opportunity doesn't arrive unless I see that they're hardworking, that they put the effort to it, that they're willing to grow the business just like I would. Because why would I give the opportunity for somebody to buy equity into my business if they're not putting in the effort? If they don't work to build the practice, if they don't service the patients the way that they need to be serviced, the way they deserve to be serviced, I know that person is somebody that I want to go into business with in the future. So I think having your own goals and sharing it with people is one thing, but helping your team grow their own goals, I think that just pushes it over the limit. I think that's the next step.
When you're not busy working, what's your favorite thing to do?
Aside from having my wife tell me what to do, probably play golf.
Play golf. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything that keeps you up at night as a business owner?
No, and I think people that can't sleep well because of the business or anything like that, they probably are not doing something right and they know it. There's been times like any business at the beginning that the funds is not there, we didn't make enough money as a month, and we don't have the safety net that we should because we just started. So sometimes you're a little worried about that, but if you're getting up every day, you're putting in all the effort that you can, and you're doing right by the people that not only work with you, but the people that you service as well, I think that gives you a pretty easy, night sleep. If you know you're doing the right thing, it's very easy to sleep. I think if you're losing sleep, maybe you should, reevaluate how you're going about your day and the effort and service that you're giving out there. Because if you know you're doing the right thing and everything's going well, you should sleep just fine.
So aside from purchasing 1 to 2 dental practices a year and also working on the business rather than working in the business, what are some other goals that you have with your 3 dental practices and your med spa?
Grow them slowly but surely. I mean, it's not the most lucrative of business like some tech companies and things that just like grow like that, or like a product that you can go from selling 100 products in a year to like 1,000,000 products in a year. It's a hardworking business that you just have to get up every day and see it grow like a little bit every year. There's not much goals after like the practice is running. It's gonna grow by itself slowly. You just have to provide good service, because most of your patients, yes, you're gonna do a lot of Google, you're gonna do a lot of marketing, but if you don't have good patient retention, you're not going to grow. Most of our patients are referrals from in-house, from our own patients. So again, building that team mentality that you need to properly give the right services to the patient population that you have so that they can refer patients to you is the thing that we work on the most. That's what I usually do with the practice that I currently have established.
How do you think technology has changed dentistry?
It changes for the best. Now we have better 3D machines so that we can accurately place the implants where they go. Most of the implants in my practices, we always take a 3D. We see where the bone is. We see the angle of the implant. We plan it before in a computer before we put it in the patient. Very rarely do we have, unless it's an immediate implant where the tooth comes out and it goes in at the same time. That goes a little bit more with the skill of the practitioner, because not everything goes according to plan. But most cases are not like that. Most cases are prepared ahead of time. So the patient comes in, we scan them, we take a 3D, we plan this on the computer. A lot of times we get an implant guy to go ahead and place the implant. So technology has helped in diagnosing a lot and case planning before actually working. We have a lot more success in how long that implant's going to last, how that surgery is going to go. When we're going to take out a wisdom tooth, we take a 3D image. We know exactly where the nerve is going to be. There's always risk. Just like in any surgery, there's always going to be risk, but we minimize it a lot.
Being a dentist, every single day is different. So I'm pretty sure you don't get bored as a dentist, but I think it can get a little bit repetitive, right? And I believe there's ways in which not only dentists, but many other professionals and doctors can get unmotivated and they can lose inspiration. How do you stay motivated and how do you stay inspired to keep getting better every day and growing?
That last piece that you said is my motivation, growth. I want to grow. I want to see how far this life can take me in terms of not only my personal life, but also my business. And I know that if I become lazy and I don't want to go to the offices every day, I don't want to see how the team is doing, and I don't motivate my team, I won't grow. And I won't see that fulfillment to see how far I could take it. And I don't have a specific goal. Maybe I get to 20 practices and that was it. But maybe I get to 100. I'm not going to know that until the end of my life. So I know that if I don't get up and put that effort every day, I'm not going to achieve the best goal that I possibly can. Not that I have a specific goal, but I won't become the person that I could have become.
What do you do when you see yourself getting lazy?
I'll let you know when it happens. I'll let you know when it happens. I'm very focused. If you tell me we have to get through that wall and there's no other way to get through it, I'm going to get through that wall. So whether I have to like break it down, hammer, fist, whatever it is. If you tell me that something needs to get done, it's not an option for me. It needs to get done. And that's what I tell myself. It's like, hey, listen, this needs to get done. You need to do this. If you know you don't have an option, then you don't have an option. What's the point of complaining? What's the point of saying, oh, I'm tired? You're never going to hear that from me. I'm not that type of person. I've never been that type of person. I get up. If I went to sleep at 6 and I have to get up at 6:30, I'm the first up. Whether it is to do anything, fun activities, whatever it is. I consider myself very motivated, and I go for it 100%. If I fail, it's because I gave it everything that I had. I have no way of looking at things other than that. If something needs to get done, it needs to get done. It's not an option that we had.
How many hours of sleep are you getting every day? Is it variable or?
It depends on my daughter. She dictates how we sleep. We try to go to sleep every day between 10 and 11. Okay. Usually a little bit past that because it takes me a little while to just like, unwind from the day. You're going to see me going to sleep between 11, 11:30. But then we might get up at 2. We might get up at 4. We might get up at 6. It varies in every case.
What are you most proud of in your career so far?
In my career? How I'm always calm, regardless of what happens. Whether it is a problem with an employee, a problem with a patient, a specific scenario that happened in an office, I just always try to keep my cool. I don't think I've ever lost my cool. My wife was actually saying the other day, because we were doing an IV on a patient and the patient passed out, probably because of the needle. She was tired, whatever reason. And I was the one doing the IV. And everybody, it was at an event, and everybody was like, oh my God, should we go help? She's like, no. Sandor's the one doing it. Don't bother him. He's fine. He's cool. He doesn't need help. And nobody knew what was going on with the patient. But she sees how I carry myself, how I handle myself in whatever situation presents. So she knew that because I was the one working with the patient at that specific time, it was going to be fine.
How do you stay calm though with everything that's going on in your world, having 2 kids, having 4 businesses, going on your 5th? How do you stay calm?
I don't know. I think that's something that some people are born with. Definitely you can work on it, because again, I think what you tell yourself every day when you wake up, and I've had this conversation with many people, shapes who you are and how you see things. Just like in any sport, just like in anything in life, practice is everything, right? And you have to, if you're playing a sport, you have to get up, you have to go practice, and you have to improve your practice. Because if you practice the same way all the time, you're never going to improve. You have to see what you're doing wrong, and you have to shape it to improve. Whether you're lifting weights, whether you're playing golf, baseball, whatever it is that you're doing, you have to analyze the way you're practicing, seeing how you can improve it. Because I think Don Chulo was the one that said it. It's not practice that makes perfect. It's perfect practice that makes perfect. So I think the way that you can practice for mental toughness or anything like that is the way you say things in your mind, what you tell yourself. You gotta get up every morning and work on that. If it's something you need to work on, thankfully to me, being calm and not freaking out or worry about things came very naturally since I was little. And I think sports played a big part in that. But if you're somebody that needs to work on your mental toughness, I think, having a specific quote that you like to read in the mornings, or, the first thing that you get up when you get in your car and go somewhere is listen to a podcast that talks about mental toughness and how you can improve it. I think that's the way to work on that. I think that's the way to work on improving your mental toughness, so that you're not weak in the moment when the moment presents. Because if you think you're going to get strong when the situation happens, you're not ready for it. You're not ready to tackle that situation at that point in time. You have to prepare for that situation before it even presents itself. It might never present itself, but just because it doesn't mean you shouldn't be ready for it.
Is there anything you tell yourself in the morning?
No, not at all. Thankfully, like I said, for me is I've always realized that when something needs to happen, it's not an option. It just needs to happen. When you're presented with a situation, one way or another, whether it's A, B, Z, something needs to happen. So why worry about it?
What are some of the most important lessons that you've learned from owning multiple dental practices?
To expect the unexpected. You can have, just this summer we went through some tough times with the management of the practices, and it had nothing to do with anybody. It's just life situations that presents itself, and you just need to deal with it at that point in time. It were some, horrible situations. We had a few managers whose family members got cancer, from sons to husbands and things like that, and it all happened at the same time in different offices to different people. Wow. It was the craziest thing. And from supporting them to working with them, to trying to help them get through the situation, knowing that that person wasn't going to be 100% present at work. How can we support the person that's going through something really, really tough at home, so that they can feel supported and your patients don't feel like they're being neglected? Because at the end of the day, when somebody's going through something like that at home, there's no way that they're going to be 100% present in the office. Yep. So that's the thing that I've learned the most, to expect the unexpected in everything. Even if everything's going really, really well, life is going to show you ways to test that toughness that we talked about.
What would you tell a dentist who has one dental practice and is maybe thinking about expanding but doesn't really want to, maybe because they're afraid or they have doubts in their mind? What would you tell that dentist?
To talk to other dentists that have done it. And they're going to show them, they're going to realize. I have this conversation with my associates. I have this conversation with dentist friends, because like I said, just because I have an associate and they're really good and I would love for them to stay with me forever, if they have the opportunity to grow themselves to buy a practice, I'm going to be the first one to offer them help. I'm going to be the first one to offer them guidance. And it already happened to us. I had an associate at my Miami Beach location. She was with us for almost 2 years or 3. And she was like, I'm thinking of buying my practice. I was like, how can we help? How can I guide you? And we worked through the first purchase of her practice, and now she has a good practice in the Kendall area, and she's doing really good. And we helped her through this. So if you're thinking of expanding, if you're thinking of making the next step, talk to people that have done it. One of the things that I try to work in my life about the people that are around me is not have that person that's going to tap your shoulder and tell you you're doing great all the time. I've always said this. I don't want a cheerleading team around me. I want people that are going to contradict everything I say. Whether they're right or I'm right, I don't care. It doesn't matter. If I come to you with an idea and all you say is like, oh my God, that's fantastic. Do it. I'm going to do it. But I don't know if it was right or not. I don't know if there was a point around it that I could have seen different. I don't know if I could have made that same idea even a little bit better, as opposed to if I go to you and I tell you, I have this idea, you're like, okay, yeah, but what about this? Or, could it work if we do this? Even if I'm right and you're wrong, it made me analyze it from a different perspective. Even if I come to the same conclusion that I came to when I first came up with the idea about it being a great idea, I already looked at it from a different point of view. So now that idea is even more founded, has even more bearings to it, because it made me look at it from a point that I hadn't seen it before. Or if I had analyzed it, I can explain to you how I analyzed that point and why it works. But I don't want a cheerleading team around me. I don't want, people that are always going to be clapping and entourage. Oh my God, you're so great. No, no, no. I want people to contradict me at every point of every step that I take. Because even if I'm still right, I might view the situation differently and I might make it better. Or maybe I am wrong and you pointed something out that was very obvious to you, but it wasn't to me.
Okay, so let's say that dentist, they listen to your advice, they open up the dental practice and candle, whatever it is. What are the most important skills that you think they need to have to really be successful in their dental practice?
They need to be good practitioners. That's the first thing. Because you might have 10 patients walking to the door, but if you only retain one, you're not gonna be successful. So first and foremost, you need to be a good practitioner. You need to make sure that your skills are where they need to be. Because now, if an associate of mine can do something in the practice, they can always fall back on me. If they started in extractions and they couldn't finish it, I will finish that for them. I give them that confidence. If they want to try something new, that they maybe went to a workshop for it, that they took a class for it, but they actually haven't done it on a patient, they know that I will show up that day and I will sit in the office waiting for them to do it. And they have the confidence to know that I can back them up. When you have your practice, you don't have that. The most that you can do if you get in trouble with an extraction, an implant, a surgery, whatever it is that you're doing, a root canal, anything, you have to refer out. So now you have to tell that patient, hey, listen, I did something wrong. Something didn't go according as planned. I'm going to stop this right now and I'm going to refer you to a specialist. That's not going to look very good because maybe you tackled something that you were not ready for and you didn't have the backup of somebody who has done it multiple times before. Because if I haven't done something multiple times, I'm going to tell my associate to do it. It's because I already done it 100 times that I'm going to tell them, hey, listen, do it, because no matter what happens, I can take care of it. You don't have that anymore. So being a practitioner, a good practitioner, and knowing your limits is number one. And then after that, you need to know how to handle a team. Because now you have a front desk, now you have a manager, now you have assistants, now you have a hygienist that you didn't have to handle before. I took care of all of that, or my managers took care of all of that. Now you need to know how to handle the team. You need to know how to budget yourself. You were never in charge of buying materials. You were never in charge of knowing the cost of things. All you had to do was show up, do your work, and leave. I took care of everything else. I know how much things cost. I know how much we can charge. I know all of that. So you need to have a vast knowledge of things before you, not only in dental, before you partake in any business. You need to know how it works. And a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people think that because they're a good practitioner, because they're a good dentist, they can, oh, I'm going to open my practice now. And say, oh, have you looked at all the variables? Do you know how it works? Do you know what you need? What do you need to do the first thing you get to the office in the morning? It's not see the patient. You had to be there an hour and a half before to manage your team, set up the expectation, know what they had to do, and then take on. And then it goes into the aspect of things that we're never even going to learn as a dentist because you don't need to, which is the IT aspect of it. You need to find a good team to take care of all the computers, to take care of the backup, the patient files, to take care of all the things. So it takes a vast knowledge to open a business, especially a medical business, where you're dealing with, patients that are in pain, something's wrong. It's a different aspect of it.
So you mentioned let's say in a hypothetical scenario that a dentist only sees 10 patients and they only retain one patient. Do you track those metrics?
Yep, absolutely.
How?
Absolutely. We see the patients that come in. We track them down. Not only that, but we see what source they came from, what advertising source they came from, or if they came from a different patient. We track that down, and then we see whether they come back to the office or not. Okay. So we have the patient come in. We do the initial exam. We tell them what they need, whether they need a lot of work or they don't. We see if they made another appointment, if they came back to that appointment, if they're coming back every 3 to 6 months for their hygiene. We track all of that.
Is that something a third party does, or is that something?
No, we do that in office. We do that in office. Yeah.
Do you use any softwares? Or?
Yeah, so we use the dental software, and right there you keep your appointments, you keep track of the patients, you keep track of their schedule, you keep track of everything right there.
What's the best advice you've ever received from someone else that's close to you? Maybe someone famous, someone that you read a book from. What's the best advice you've received?
I didn't think about this. The best advice that I've ever received from anybody. I think when I was young, Um, and I think it's something that helped me shape a lot. I looked up to my grandfather a lot, and I think one day, he told me just don't don't make excuses. They don't mean anything. It wasn't in those exact words. First of all, it was in Spanish, but that was the sentiment of it.
How was it in Spanish?
No te excuses. No significa no significa nada. O es por gusto. So it basically meant, and I think it was playing a stupid sport or something like that I fell or something. It was something very stupid, but I always remember things that people say, even if they were very stupid. Sometimes they mean a lot, and that meant a lot because I realized that it was a stupid excuse. I was losing at a sport or something like that, and he's like, it doesn't mean anything. You're still losing. Like, just because you gave an excuse, it doesn't change the outcome of it. And that always stuck with me, and I think that's one of the reasons why like I said, I don't give excuses. If something needs to get done, needs to get done. Don't worry about the outcome. Worry about doing it, and worry about doing it right. If you do it and you do it right, the outcome is going to be hopefully what you want it. But you don't know that. All you can do is get the job done. You cannot predict what the outcome is going to be. You can try to predict it. You can try to say, oh, if I do this, you can plan it. You can kind of like come up with it in your mind, but you cannot be 100% sure of what the outcome will be. All you can do is do it. Work on it. Give it your best. That's what I took from that. And I everything that my grandfather said, I took it to heart because like he meant a lot to me. He was a very smart person. But I think that has to be it.
If you could go back to young Sandor, you're still very young, but maybe 10 years ago, what would you tell yourself?
I have no idea. So many things. I would need a year of conversations.
What are 3 main things you would tell yourself?
I would probably get things done a little faster. I would just strategize a little bit better. Maybe some decisions that I made that are insignificant in the long run, in terms of, what we talked about, working hard. At some points when you're younger, you think that you have a lot of time, and you don't have a lot of time. You have a limited amount of time in general. So just value that more. Value that more as you're younger. Don't do so many things stupid in sports because your body's going to hurt down the road.
Did that happen to you?
Oh, so many stupid things.
What sports?
So I did a lot of MMA growing up, and that kind of like messed up my shoulders a little bit.
So you can fight?
I used to be able to fight. I don't know about it. I don't know about right now. I jump a foot into the air and then my back hurts. But things like that. I did a lot of things when I was young in terms of sports and activities. Skiing. I did things without having the proper skills at the time that I shouldn't have, and dislocated my shoulder a few times. My back hurts. I would be a little more disciplined in terms of my body as I was younger. Even working out, I used to go and lift stupid amount of heavy weights for no reason. When I realize now that it to me personally, it's more important to have an athletic body to be able to still play sports at this age. Because at 21, you can play any sport and you're going to like hate yourself. You're going to like recuperate, heal within a day. You're going to be fine. As you get older, you don't realize that your body's going to start giving up a little bit on you. And, to me, that's a big deal. The fact that I did a lot of dumb stuff in terms of sports growing up.
One of the things that I found really interesting was that earlier in our conversation, you mentioned my goals in 5 to 10 years rather than my goal this year or my goal next year. How important do you think it is to be a long-term thinker or setting long-term goals rather than short-term goals? Because a lot of people, they're used to that instant gratification that you get everything quick. You want something from Amazon, you get it, maybe you get it in a couple of hours. Before it wasn't like that. Yeah, now you can get a lot of things quick. What do you think? What would you say to someone that's a short-term thinker rather than a long-term thinker?
I mean, you need both, but what goals are you setting that is going to take you 6 months or a year? Those are not real goals. Those are, that's a sprint. That is basically steps towards your actual goal. Because what am I gonna do in 6 months? Get up every day, go to the office, and plan it. It's hard to set goals for a year. I mean, they're not realistic. I think you should set your goals in, like I said, 5, 10 years, and then like everything you do in between is steps towards your goal. Um, I can say, oh, my goal this year is to get a practice, but what is that? That's a very short-sighted goal. At least for me, everybody has their own goals. Don't quote me on what your goal should be, but that's very short-sighted. Okay, I got one practice. Then what do I do the year after that? I think you're not planning properly. I don't think you're setting up yourself for success in the future if you're only planning every year of your life. You should come up with a goal that's going to meet your life standards for the next 5, 10 years. More than that, you can. It's just that everything is very unpredictable. But you can set up your 5-year goal, then you can have smaller goals throughout that time. But I don't think you can set a career or a life goal for such a short time. Even in relationships, you can say, oh, this year I want to get married, this year I want to die. Okay, but is that building towards like a life with your significant other and with your kids, or you just want the, like you said, instant gratification of, oh, I did something, that was fantastic. I think people should go away from having the need to feel like somebody's clapping behind them whenever they get anything done, as opposed to achieving greater things.
It seems to me like you have a very supportive partner. It seems, well, your wife. It seems like you guys have a great family. How important is it to have that partner that really pushes you to be better every single day?
I think your partner selection is gonna dictate how successful you are in the future. And we can see that not only in the everyday person, but we can see that in movie stars and everything. We can see like a broken down man because of the way the wife was. That's the person that's going to wake up to you next to you every morning. That's the person that you're going to talk to every night at the end of the day. What that person says back to you in that moment of when you're talking to them is everything. They can either break you down or build you up. You need somebody that's going to go to war and fight with you. Not somebody that's going to, turn their back on you just because things get a little tough. I think that your partner selection should be the most important decision that you ever make in your life. Because like I said, business can come and go. You can always start back from zero. But that person that you decide to build a family with, and if you do decide to build a family with, you can always have 100 girlfriends and you never remember them. But if you're building something with that person's going to be in your life forever.
How do you guys support each other?
I think in every way. She supports my decisions, and she gives me, again, what I said, she always gives me her opinions. And even if I don't agree with it, it makes me look at things from a different perspective. And she has a different perspective than me in general because she lived a different life. I'm 9 years older than her, so just on that aspect alone, she has a completely different perspective on life than me. But we have the same goals. Just because somebody looks at something differently, it doesn't mean that the end result cannot be the same. You might take different paths to get to the same result. And people have shown that there's many ways to achieve what you want in life. It doesn't have to be one path. So it's just the fact that she grew up in a different generation than me, that she sees things in a different way than I do. That point alone, whenever I give her an idea that I want to do something, she's already looking at it in a different way than I am. And whether she's right or I'm right, it doesn't matter, because we are analyzing towards the same goal. We're not constantly fighting on it. And that's a very important thing in a partner, not to have somebody combative, not somebody that's going to fight you on stupid things just because they want to fight. It's somebody that's going to be like, oh, okay, this water bottle, we don't agree in how we're going to shape it, but we agree on what's going to go in it. Because the end result, the goal is the same. It's just that we have different paths to get to it. And we share that. We share our path ideas to maybe, hopefully, make it into one path to achieve the goal better.
Well, Sandor, I think a lot of people are going to find a lot of golden nuggets in this interview.
I hope so.
My last question is, how do you define success? What's success to you?
I define success in the time that I get to spend with my family. It doesn't matter what we're doing. We could be at a 5-star resort, or we can be camping in a park. The time that I get to spend with my family, that's success to me. If I have that time available to spend with them, that's all that matters.
Thank you very much for your time, Sandor.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.